Hey guys, Ragnarok54 here, and welcome back to another RuneScape video. This is going to be a series of guides on each phase of AOD from the minion melee tank perspective. I want to go really in-depth into the rotations and why you're doing each thing and how you can do the most damage possible, so these aren't really going to be beginner-friendly guides, but I do have a crash course guide for the role, and I'll link it in the description if that's more what you're looking for. Okay, so let's jump right into it. This one's going to be about phase 1. So I'll be covering 1.8 and 3.6 zerk in this video. First off, I want to just say what those even are, because when I was learning, I remember looking at the rotation sheet and thinking, what does this even mean? So that's a number of seconds after the kill has started. So when someone starts the kill, if you have less than 7 people in the instance, the boss timer will start, and the first rotation is when you start by zerking at 1.8 seconds on that boss timer, and the second one is 3.6 seconds. So this is actually really important to zerk at the right time if you want to do as much damage as possible. It may seem like you just need to zerk so that your abilities hit, but you actually do need to zerk at these specific times, and this is why. For some reason, because of the spaghetti code of Jagex or whatever, zerk auras and the zerk ability stack on the very last tick of the zerk ability. Otherwise it doesn't stack. You won't get the bonus damage from both of them at the same time. So if you zerk at the right time and wait the right number of ticks, then you can plan out all your abilities so that on the last tick of your zerk, a damaging ability or two can get doubly boosted and do a ton of damage. So that's the motivation behind zerking at the correct time. So I'm going to start off with the 3.6 second zerk because more people are probably going to be doing it. In these sorts of teams, there's going to be a dummy dropped near the center of the arena. Everyone's going to be building on it, Natural Instinct, Dragon Battle Axe, I'm sure you know the drill. Place down your mines and then go to your quadrant and get ready to zerk. So because this is the 3.6 rotation, you're going to want to wait until the timer changes from 2 to 3. And then right after that, depending on your ping, and you might want to test this a little bit and record yourself and go back to look at the video to see if you actually did zerk before the timer went to 4. I find as an NA player that on most East Coast or West Coast worlds, if I just press the zerk keybind just a little bit after I see the 3 so that it doesn't go in on the 3-second tick, but instead the 3.6 second tick, then it works perfectly fine. So the next step is just to wait until next is attackable, and if you zerked at the right time, then you will be waiting 2 ticks, because if you zerk at 3.6, you wait 1 global cooldown, which is 3 ticks, and then if you wait 2 more ticks, if you do the math there, 1.8 plus 1.2 plus 3.6, you're going to arrive at 6.6 seconds. So this is exactly when next is attackable. At this point, you want to either target cycle or click on next, whichever one you prefer. I personally target cycle, but I know a lot of people who click next instead, and they're a lot better than me, so do whatever you want. And barge at the same time as you do that click or target cycle. So as long as you've done this first part of the kill correctly, everything after this should be lined up in order to make your last damaging abilities do extra damage with your zerk ability. Okay, so one more thing that you need to know about before really getting into this rotation is freedom autos. It's actually really easy to do, and it just sounds kind of complicated, but for whatever reason, if you're using dual wield and you use the freedom ability and then switch to 2H, your character will automatically do an offhand auto attack and a 2H auto attack. So I'll demonstrate this real quick on a dummy. If I just use a dual wield ability and then freedom, and then equip my 2H, you can see that there were those 2 auto attacks that came off there. So that's really nice because it does a decent amount of damage, and it also gives you some extra adrenaline. You get that 3% from the 2H auto and the 1% from the offhand auto. So that's just one weird mechanical thing that you're going to have to get used to. And after you do it a few times, honestly, it'll feel so natural, and it's really nice when you need adren. Okay, so on to the actual rotation. You're going to want to drink your adrenaline renewal potion really right as soon as you zerk so that it has time to renew enough adrenaline for you to be able to bleed flurry as your second ability. So you barge in, you use backhand flanking, and then you bleed flurry. Then you're going to want to do that freedom auto attack that I talked about. Because you're dual wielding to bleed flurry, once you use freedom and then equip your 2H, you should do both auto attacks. Now that you've equipped your 2H, you want to use hurricane and then finish it off with two 188s. So I use cleave and then switch to dual wield to use decimate, and then switch back to 2H and use assault. The reason why you switch back to 2H to use assault is because, for whatever reason, another spaghetti code thing, the assault damage comes out one tick earlier with 2H than it does with dual wield. It's the same amount of damage, but it just comes out one tick earlier for some reason. And this is what you need in order to line up that last tick of damage to doubly boost it with Zerk and your aura, as I was talking about. Finally, you can just cancel your assault with either a flank or a cleave. Cleave is a lot easier, and your phase should be over. Okay, so let me demonstrate this phase now real quick. I'm going to pretend like I've zerked, and then I'm going to wait 2 ticks, blah, 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 and then target cycle barge in. I'm going to flank, and then I'm going to bleed flurry into a freedom auto attack, hurricane, followed by 2 188s, which is cleave and then decimate, and then finally 2H assault, canceled with a cleave at the end of it to finish off the phase. As you can see, those last 2 hits, the last hit of my assault and my cleave, came out at the same tick. So there is a slightly modified version of this, which I'll show you now. It involves target cycle barge in. Instead of flank, you just decimate, and then you bleed your flurry, freedom auto into hurricane, but instead of 2 188s, you're instead going to greater fury into your small flank, and then 2H assault, and then same thing, you're just going to cancel that with your cleave. But the benefit of doing that is if you're using a Grimoire, it will do more damage because of the guaranteed crit that can come from greater fury. If you're not using a Grimoire and you're doing a 3.6 second Zerk rotation, then do the first one that I've showed. Only do this one if you're doing 3.6 and using a Grimoire. Okay, so let's talk about the 1.8 second Zerk rotation. This is going to be very similar, but there's a couple of different things you need to know. When you're doing a 1.8 Zerk rotation, ideally the whole team is doing it, and it will mean that there are now 2 dummies in the instance. One is in the normal place, but there's going to be another dummy that someone drops right near the entrance to the arena when you first drop down. You can build on whichever dummy you want, but after you place your mines, make sure to go and attack the dummy that's near the entrance to the arena. This dummy is not going to be disassembled as the kill starts. That means that as you zerk, you are able to do a defensive and still gain adrenaline, because if you're targeting the dummy that gets disassembled, after you zerk, if you try to use a defensive, you're not going to get adrenaline. So that's actually the only weird thing about the 1.8 second Zerk. Once again, you're going to have to Zerk right at 1.8 seconds. You want it to start as 1.8 seconds happens. So just wait until you see the 1 second and wait a little bit longer, press Zerk, and you should be fine. Once again, you can record yourself and then look back to make sure it's coming out right before the timer changes to a 2. After you Zerk, you're going to want to use either Resonance or Preparation. It doesn't really matter. You can even use Anticipation for all I care. And then it's essentially the same exact rotation as the 3.6 Grimoire rotation that I just showed you, except instead of using your Decimate as your first ability, you're just going to skip that entirely because you used a defensive in its place and start with the Greater Flurry. Okay, so let's take a look at the rotation in action real quick. You're still going to target cycle barge, but you're going to start out with the Bled Flurry, and then from there it's just the same exact thing. Freedom auto to hurricane, and then dual wield greater flurry or fury into flank, and then finish it off with the 2H assault canceled with a cleave. Okay, now for some general notes on phase 1. I'd personally recommend using your Ripper spec manually during this phase just to ensure you get a reverse skip, because it just makes everything go really smoothly. You want that last tick of your Zerk to phase it, and it's really just going to help if you have everyone spamming their Ripper attacks. You should be near 100% anyway. If you're not, you can just drink some Spiritual Prayer Potions, especially during the assault where you don't need to be clicking anything. Just go ahead and click your Ripper special attack to make sure it's going off. Another thing is Group Vengeance. There's no cooldown on how often you can be vengeanced by anyone, so make sure to use Group Vengeance if you are a meleeer. And it can really help speed up some kills a lot, because if she does a mage attack and everyone gets hit, that can actually add up to some big damage. So you're probably wondering about the Elements special attack. This honestly isn't that big of a deal. you can just use Disruption Shield before, after every kill, or if you don't want to use it then you can just use it as you get the special attack if it does happen to you. And then just continue on to do your P2 rotation as the elements are actually hitting you, the second and third hit, and eat up a little bit if you want, like a Blubber and a Guthix Rest. And then you can continue eating as you're killing your Amalgamation, because you're not really going to be taking any hits. So don't panic eat. Please do not eat a solid food if you get elements. It's really going to go badly. Do not debilitate or anything, because you're going to need all the adrenaline you can get for Phase 2, which will be the next video. One last thing I wanted to mention before I close this video is using Greater Fury on the dummy while you're building. This can be really nice because if you have your Grimoire on, then Greater Fury is really likely to give you that crit bonus. Even though you don't actually hit the dummies with anything, it can still give you the crit bonus. So just kind of spam Fury and defensives while you're building, and if you get that buff, then don't attack it again and just continue building with defensives and your Bladed Dive and Surge and stuff like that. And then when the kill starts, your barge or your flank will hit an easy like 13 to 15k. So that's a super good way to get some free damage. Okay, so let's check out an example Phase 1 with a 3.6 zerk. I'm going to be doing the first rotation I showed here. I managed to get the crit buff from Greater Fury, so I'm trying to keep that. We start the kill, and I'm going to wait till 3 seconds passes. Now I'm going to zerk. You can see everyone zerks at the same time. That's a good mark that you've zerked at the same time. Same thing with the barge in. Start off with a flank into a flurry, freedom hurricane. I'll do 2 188s. Once again, you can see that everyone is on tick here. Finish it off with the assault. I got the elements. I'm making sure to have soul split, get some health back, and finish it off with the cleave. As you can see, we got a huge pre-phase there, 80k. You can often get 80 to 100k if everyone is on tick there, and it can really help your Phase 2. Here's a 1.8 second zerk Phase 1, and as you can see, after placing the mines, I make sure to target the southern dummy, and then I go back to where I'm supposed to be because I'm the Glacies, and it's not super important that you do this, but I'm just stuck in my ways. Use some defensives to stall. One thing I would note is try to not use a defensive right as the kill starts when you're 1.8 zerking, because you won't have time to let the global cooldown finish. So just keep your eye on the base and try to get a feel on when they start kills, and once they like open the menu, you can see their character turn usually. That you shouldn't use a defensive past that point if you can help it. Okay, I wait the 2 ticks, I barge in on 6.6. As I said, you bleed the flurry and then do the freedom hurricane into a fury flank assault. You can tell if you're on tick because everyone else is doing it at the same time. Cancel it with the cleave. As you can see, someone messed up the rotation of this skill, so he didn't phase it immediately, so I just do 1 extra ability. Okay, so I think I've talked a bit too much about Phase 1 at this point, so if you have any additional questions, please leave a comment and I will get back to you. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.